So honestly, I think we covered Bo Bichette to an absolute T. I don't know if there's anything more we can say. So today, let's go back and look at some of the trades and some of the prospects the Toronto Blue Jays have acquired.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. We have the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs have wound down. The sports stop sportsing like I want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasco, Carter First too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. For game recaps, little updates, it's all there, as well as on the YouTube. And we really appreciate it if you guys drop a subscription on YouTube. It's free. It's one click. Turn on notifications to get notified whenever we are dropping episodes or lives or whatever. And it keeps us at the top of your guys' page, so you guys know whenever everything is coming out. Carter, we went into a Bo Bichette absolute deep dive the past two episodes on what's going to happen with this offseason, with this trade, and we're going to have plenty more of that to come heading into the offseason. But for right now, there's still some stuff to look at from the trade deadline, including some of the prospects. We've already covered a couple guys, but today is Charles McAdoo. This is a guy that I really didn't know much about. Carter, but then of course he gets traded. The fans go nuts over not wanting this guy to leave their system. And as Blue Jays fans, I think the only thing we can do is at least be happy with the fact that we're pissing off other fan bases.
Yeah, this is the upside pick here. Going into the trade deadline, IKF was one of those players that you didn't necessarily think that was going to be moved because Ross Hawkins has pointed out and said multiple times they're not on an expiring contract. They're probably not going to be moved at the trade deadline. But look what happens. We kind of went on our trade deadline preview, I guess you could say, and we did some predictions who we thought was going to be moved. I had IKF being moved like 100% chance. Like absolutely, you got to move on from this guy. You're selling high on IKF. Just looking at his career stats, he was hitting 290, above average hitter in weighted runs created. Plus, he was hitting 115, which the average is 100. So with IKF, just looking at the career stuff, he was playing out of his mind. He was playing way above his career averages. And for me, I didn't necessarily think he could maintain that for seasons after this. He's going to be good for the rest of this season. Again, he was playing the Diamondbacks, I believe it was, 2 for 5, 2 RBIs. That's just what IKF does this season. But overall, just I got a quote here from Keegan Matheson from Ross Atkins, and it's about IKF and how this deal kind of got reached here. So it says that the IKF market, his name was fairly aggressive, and particularly the Pirates were very aggressive about IKF. So he goes on to say there were several teams that approached us about him, and he was surprised that they ended up crossing the line. So that's how they're viewing IKF. IKF was going to be very good for the rest of the season. He was going to be a staple probably for next season as well. You get gold glove defense, and now you're having above average hitting. You're getting another contact bat in there. But again, you look at Ernie Clement, you look at what he's doing. He is sort of like IKF, probably not doing it as well as IKF is necessarily. But if you can move on from IKF and get a highly touted prospect back, that is definitely going to help you out with your rankings, especially when your prospect rankings are pretty subpar up to this point. But looking at Charles McAdoo's stats, like there's some stuff to get excited about. Again, as his swing is a little wonky, not the nicest swing you've ever seen, not the cleanest swing. But when he's producing like this, I mean, you could be swinging like it's a golf swing, and I wouldn't really care up to this point. So just looking at I'll go over his OPSs. We'll start there throughout 2021 all the way up to 2024. So obviously this guy's kind of been all over the place. He's been in the NCAA, the single A, double A, all kind of mixed into this. But looking in 2021, his OPS in NCAA, not the greatest thing, 703. But then he goes over, and throughout the year, he gets that up to, with another team, a 1.055, and then with another team, a 1.035, and then just going through the rest of the years, 938, 952, 923, 911. So many good OPSs here, and you're looking at Charles McAdoo. This is a power bat. This is a guy that can hit home runs. When you're going through the home run stats throughout the years, again, these games played are way lower than the MLB, so the home runs, you're not going to get 50 home runs when he's playing 50 games. But overall, in 56 games in 2022, he had 12 home runs. 43 games, he had 10 home runs. 58 games, he had another 10 home runs. So he's kind of getting a home run every 4 to 5 games, which when you translate that to the MLB season, that's about a 30 home run pace. Again, this is single A, this is double A. It's not necessarily the show yet, but when you're having this amount of power in the minor leagues, usually that does translate pretty well to the major leagues, especially when guys are throwing harder. If you can just get your barrel on the ball is going to go a long way. So overall, if you're trading IKF, you're going to have to get a major prospect back, a guy that has major upside. And that's exactly what Ross Atkins did at this trade deadline.
Yeah, and we always talk about, right, that we give Ross Atkins a lot of grief, but then he is known for making good trade deadline moves. So you got to give him props on that at least. Again, I have to preface this every time I talk about Ross Atkins. It doesn't mean I don't want him fired. I just said he does good jobs at the trade deadline. Shouldn't have been in this position, but here we are. Charles McAdoo, like you said, he is a power bat, and that is something the Blue Jays could really use right now. And I think getting him and a couple of these other guys and sort of reigniting, resparking the prospect system for the Toronto Blue Jays is great. And obviously he was drafted in 2023 in the 13th round. But as we all know what draft that was Paul Skeens, the Pittsburgh Pirates were able to get, two guys that, were made the fans pretty excited. And McAdoo was one of those guys. I think he became a quick a note in all of the fans' mind of, this guy could be good eventually. Paul Skeens obviously is just one of the best pitchers I've ever seen. He's absolutely immaculate. But looking at Charles McAdoo, it was a great pick. And the Toronto Blue Jays getting him, it's unbelievable. I really like him. Obviously, he's 22 right now, playing in Double-A. He's 6'1", 210 pounds. They have an estimated time for him reaching the big leagues in 2026. I mean, with the Toronto Blue Jays, he might get some, at-bats here and there throughout this year or next year, depending on sort of the direction. But I think 2026, 2027 even is probably a good timeline for him. But we'll have to wait and see. He's a guy that I was pretty excited about. He was one of the guys that we talked about on the live, I believe, as well. And I think when you see a fan base, like when we go back to the Yusei Kikuchi trade and the Astros fans are pretty pissed about it, we get excited because that means, okay, we got to take a deeper dive into this guy, see why they're getting so frustrated. And that's sort of what we did on James McAdoo as well. The Pirates fans weren't too impressed with getting IKF for him. So at the end of the day, I really like what I've been seeing so far of him. I mean, again, we'll have to wait and see. All these prospects, like Carter always says, it's a lottery ticket. But I think that the stats are showing good things, and take it or leave it with statistics. What how you feel about him. I know we're not big stats guys, but when a guy has over 900 OPS, I think you gotta be a little bit excited for that, Carter. So at the end of the day, I'm pretty impressed with what has happened in this trade deadline. Charles McAdoo is a guy that I really liked. I don't know. We did our prospect sort of rankings of who we had where from the trade deadline, and he's pretty high up on my list. I mean, obviously you got to be excited about Jake Bloss and some of these other guys, but I think Charles McAdoo, the upside is more there than some of the other ones, I think.
For sure, yeah. And this is a guy that's been described as a power bat over a hitting guy. He's not going to hit for average, but if you're going to hit home runs, that's something that this Toronto Blue Jays team needs. From analysts around the league, they describe Charles McAdoo as very dynamic, extremely physical, and the Toronto Blue Jays believe that he will play third base or a corner outfield position. From what I've read, it looks like that the way it's going to translate to the MLB, when hopefully he does get there in 2026, 2027, that he will be a corner outfielder. But again, when you're looking at this from the big picture and you're looking at it from what the front office has said, when you're saying that you want to retool for next season and you have IKF on your team, he's going to make more of an impact for next season than Charles McAdoo is, because Charles McAdoo is probably not going to play with the Toronto Blue Jays at all next season. You look at this season, this guy's still in Double-A. Is he going to make the jump to the MLB team? Probably not. Probably not going to get reps this season either. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, it doesn't really make sense why you would trade IKF, who's having a career year, for a guy, again, with upside, but isn't going to help your team in 2025. So that's another interesting thing to look at as well. But overall, this season, he was hitting .315 with a .394 on-base percentage and a .538 slugging with 14 home runs and 17 stolen bases, which is a very intriguing thing as well. In 87 minor league games this season, a guy that has a little bit of speed. Again, they said He's very physical, very athletic, a guy that has been playing third base, but overall translates, again, better to a corner position in the outfield. Someone to get excited about for sure, like a young guy, obviously drafted last year, like you said. When this trade initially came out, me and Braden were joking, like, oh, we got Paul Skeens for IKF. Perfect trade. I think the Pirates kind of fleeced us a little bit, though, because IKF is an absolute dog. But it's a guy to get excited about for the future. But this front office is so weird, man, because they'll say one thing and then they'll do something else. That's why we were pretty sure that they were saying, oh, we're not going to trade any contracts that were expiring beyond the season. I kind of figured that was a load of BS from Ross Atkins. He's lied to the fans before, figured he might lie again. Don't necessarily hate the trade, but doesn't make sense with the way this team was trending for the future.
Yeah, it really doesn't, right? And we've talked about this time and time again, is that there's just not really a clear direction that the Toronto Blue Jays have given the fans. For some reason, they keep saying that they want to compete next year, but then you load up with prospects, which I'm a fan of. I think that needed to happen because the prospect system was lacking pretty aggressively for this Toronto Blue Jays team. But also, I didn't mention before that Charles McAdoo is ranked 13th overall as a prospect.
I think he's 14, but yeah, right in there.
Yeah, okay. He is 13. He is 13. I had to make sure. But
I was 14 on mine. But I mean, I guess I don't know.
It could be
all over the place.
Could be two different lists. I mean, I know there's MLB Pipeline, there's the official, then there's the MLB site, and there's a couple other ones. I know Fangraphs does their own as well.
Yeah, I got Pipeline. Pipeline, he's at 14, but again, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, he's right there. Yeah, he's the top 15 prospect. There you go. Yeah, there's so many people, and I mean, this is sort of what me and you did too. Going back on that, right? Is we rank some of these guys, and our rankings were a little bit different than the MLBs, than the Pipelines, than Fangraphs. So it's all subjective, right? It's all what you see. I mean, I think Jake Bloss being a top 3 prospect is probably pretty accurate because I am really excited about him, and we'll get into him more as well later. I think we covered him in the episode last week, didn't we?
Yeah, we got Jake Bloss. We got that whole trade broken down. Joey Loperfido obviously making an impact for the Toronto Blue Jays right now. Will Wagner. We've kind of been doing this in a ranking system. So we had, I think this is pretty common, Yusei Kikuchi being the best trade of the Toronto Blue Jays deadline. And then for us, we kind of talked about this off camera, and we have this trade being the second best. Again, doesn't necessarily make sense when you're looking at it in the grand scheme of things, but when you're looking player for player, if you're looking for just upside, Charles McAdoo has probably the 4th or 5th best chance of being an actual MLB prospect from this trade deadline. You can maybe even crack him in the top 3. So we're just looking at talent. We're looking at this just solely from a trade perspective, not including the Toronto Blue Jays direction at all in this trade, just looking at the player value. And we're loving Charles McAdoo. Again, it's a prospect. He's in AA, hasn't even played in AAA yet, has very limited service time in AA. A lot of things to change. A lot of things can happen. It's not necessarily going to be a guy that just skips AAA like Jake Bloss and then tries to go in the MLB. He's going to have to go through the rankings. So it's going to be a guy that we're monitoring closely. But overall, it's a prospect. And when you're going into 2025, you're looking for something to bolster your roster in 2025. Unfortunately for the Toronto Blue Jays, Charles McAdoo will probably not be that answer.
Yeah, and it's sort of as we go through the rest of this season, we're going to break down more of these guys. I mean, I really want to get into Cutter Coffee. He's ranked pretty low, but I was a big fan of that trade as well. I think that the upside for Cutter Coffee is there, but we'll get more into him. We'll get into I mean, all the guys. I mean, there's a ton of them to go over because the Blue Jays just kept making trades. So we'll go over all those guys coming up. But we got some Blue Jays news that we sort of want to go over. Blue Jays news, MLB League news, sort of just a lot of stuff. And then, of course, the series preview, Blue Jays versus the Orioles. We'll get into all that. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the most reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business to talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can help you get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. You can join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com.
So, Carter, we got some Blue Jays news to cover. I mean, again, we're sort of in the dog days of the MLB season now for this Toronto Blue Jays team. But we still got some cool things to go over. We might throw some back, Carter, some segments that you created back in the preseason and the off season that we might try to bring back here. I know a lot of people like it when I was talking to Ross Levitan, host of Locked On Senators podcast, and they do this sort of in their dog days of the year and their off season. So we got some cool segments coming up with you guys. Me and Carter have talked about a few, and we might bring them to the podcast. We're going to do them as like sort of TikTok things and short things and real things. But you know what? Since we're at where we're at in this season, we might try to bring them onto the podcast for like a third segment, sort of, I don't know, have some fun with it. Just talk some Blue Jays, mess around a little bit. We might try to do that. But for today, we got some Blue Jays news. We got some MLB just news in general. And then, of course, we still have the series preview to get into in the third segment here, Carter. But I'll throw it back to you to sort of kick things off.
Yeah, so there's one thing that I definitely want to start with, not from the Toronto Blue Jays, but there is a link for the Toronto Blue Jays. And it is about our boy, our man, the guy that used to be the manager of this team, and that is Charlie Montoyo. So, again, this is from Travis Hudson. Sources say that the White Sox plan to fire Pedro Grifol in the coming days, possibly tomorrow. About time. Like, this team is one of the worst teams I think I've ever seen in my life. They might set the record for the most losses in a season. But if this guy gets fired, that means bench coach Charlie Montoyo is set to be the interim manager for the remainder of the 2024 season. Bring the bongos back out. The bongos are going to be back. Is that going to help the Chicago White Sox? Maybe they'll, I don't know, they'll be hustling out of the dugout because they're probably going to be annoyed as hell with Charlie Montoyo playing the bongos literally at all times throughout the day. That organization just a horrible spot to be in. That's pretty much where I'll leave it as. I mean, the Toronto Blue, it's hell in Toronto Blue Jays land, but at least we have like some things, I guess, to be excited about. We have like we can compete in 2025. It's not completely out of the realm. The Chicago White Sox, it's like they're just in full rebuild mode. It's probably probably the worst team that I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, and my question with the White Sox, and maybe we got to get the White Sox Locked On guy on. We've talked to him a couple times. Seems like a really good guy. He does TikToks as well. So if there's any White Sox fans out there, which I don't know if there's a ton of them, you can go follow him. He's great. Yeah, he does the TikTok thing. There's not a ton of the Locked On shows that go sort of hard on the TikToks. He's one of them. So he's dialed right in and he knows exactly what's going on. Sadly enough for him. But we might have to have him on just to get like a, I don't know. I'm an MLB guy as well. Like I love the Blue Jays, but when big things are happening within the MLB, it's hard not to, be interested in what the storyline is there. So maybe we'll have him on for a segment, just talk about sort of the demise of this team, because it is pretty funny to watch. There's people making TikToks and videos on like they're gonna break the record. It's hilarious. I think it's just a time to be alive in the MLB. But yeah, interesting. Charlie Montoyo coming back, or probably as a manager. It's pretty funny because the Blue Jays didn't want him and they suck now, and now he's gonna manage the worst team in baseball. It's just typical. It is absolutely typical, but it's sort of fun. I don't know. Charlie Montoyo, he was what he was. That time is blank space for me. I just don't even think about it ever. Going into some more news, Carter. Joey Votto back playing off of his second twisted ankle injury of the season. The first one coming by a bat placed there by the Lord Jesus himself to take Joey Votto out of the game. And then I don't really know what happened with the second injury. He just re-aggravated the twisted ankle. But he's back playing. He went 2 for 5 with a home run as well in the game on Sunday, I believe it was. It might have been Saturday. I think it was Sunday. And so again, I don't know. Take it with what you will. If he comes and plays a couple of games for the Blue Jays, it'll be fun to see him in a Blue Jays uniform. But at this point, I mean, season's over. So it's not like he's going to come and make this huge difference and push the Blue Jays to a playoff spot. It's just not going to happen. So, but it would be cool to see the Canadian kid come up I shouldn't even say kid anymore, but like Joey Votto, I guess, is this,
Yeah, definitely not the kid
40-year-old,
anymore.
40-year-old. But, I watched him throughout his whole career. I mean, I remember being a kid and playing, a video game with, when we were younger. Joey Votto, everybody wanted Joey Votto because he just mashed baseballs. Um, and just a good Canadian guy. He's going to play. Hopefully, he gets in at least one game with the Blue Jays, just to see him in that uniform. That's sort of where I'm at with him.
No, he's gonna go. He's gonna be with the Toronto Blue Jays the last 2 weeks. He's doing his little 2-week farewell tour from Major League Baseball. Unless he has a good stint and someone wants to take a flyer on Joey Votto. But yeah, has a home run, I believe, on that Sunday game. Came back from apparently it is rumored that he re-aggravated the ankle injury on a baseball. So he stepped on a bat. He stepped on a baseball. I don't know if that was true or not, but that's the rumors I've been seeing. It wasn't just one person that said it, but it wasn't a sports analyst that I actually have trust in. So I just figured I'd throw this out. Maybe that actually is what happened with Joey Votto. He's like a unicorn, man. It's just like you think you see him, maybe you think he's around, but again, who knows? Who knows where Joey Votto is going to be in the next 2 weeks? Maybe if they needed like a maid or something, they need somebody to follow this guy around, make sure his alley is clear at all times. Yeah. He has a space to walk. He's got maybe like a 3 foot like space on both sides of him where it's like, hey, there is no objects here whatsoever. Maybe he just needs to walk with his head down. Just don't look where you're going, Joey. Just look at your feet. If you hit your head on something, at least it's not your ankle. So that's where we're at with that. But
he's got the Secret Service following him around every day just to keep him
they
safe.
might have to just surround him, have like 4 bodyguards on each side, and just rip. Just go forward, move as a unit, just keep the alleyways clear for Joey Votto, because I do want to see him as a Toronto Blue Jay as well. Kind of takes away from the playing time from some of these rookies here, some of these Buffalo guys. But again, I think at this point, we're just looking for something that excites us in this Toronto Blue Jay season. And it definitely would be exciting to see Joey Votto just strolling out of the dugout, trying to get some at-bats from the left side. Maybe a farewell home run at the Rogers Center. I think that might give him a standing ovation. Hopefully in his first game that he plays the Toronto Blue Jays. Maybe the last game of the season. But Joey Votto be with the Toronto Blue Jays would just be a sight to see. Definitely would be hilarious. But I'm going to move on to a guy that's pretty much on the opposite spectrum of Joey Votto. So Joey Votto is an old man, 40 years old, having some injury problems. And now let's go to the 18-year-old from our single A team in Dunedin, and that is Arjun Nimmala. Arjun Nimmala is 18 years old, a top draft pick. I believe it was in 2022, 4th ranked on the MLB Pipeline's prospect ranking system. But this guy's been on a little bit of a heater recently. In his last 9 games with Dunedin, he has 11 hits, 5 home runs, 13 RBIs. Starting to figure it out a little bit. And it was a 2023 first-round pick, but he went deep with a 3 RBI performance on Saturday. It's 6 RBIs over his last 3 games at that point. And then he's up to 13 home runs on the season. So not hitting for the best average. He's hitting just over 210, 214, 13 home runs, though, at 801 OPS, 34 RBIs. Just a guy that's that young, that raw right now. With this guy finding a little bit of a stretch with Dunedin, it's definitely nice to see. Build that confidence up for the rest of the season. Maybe goes to the high A team. Maybe can even crack double A this season. But you just want to see this guy progressing. He's still 18 years old. You're not going to be seeing Arjun Nimmala. I think he's projected to be around 2027. So maybe coming up with Charles McAdoo if everything works out for the both of them. A shortstop, a guy that, again, if we talk about all this Bo Bichette trade rumor stuff like that, if you want to move on from Bo Bichette, you have Arjun Nimmala in the pipeline. It's not necessarily, again, going to be there next season. Definitely won't be there next season. I'll say it right now. But you have guys that can take the spot over. You have Orelvis Martinez, who probably looks more like a second baseman. But then you have Leo Jimenez. You have Ernie Clement, who I actually want to get into right after this as well. But you have options there for that shortstop position. But definitely nice to see a young prospect of the Toronto Blue Jays system ranking.
Yeah, he's the guy that I think everybody should be excited about. When we look at the prospect rankings, like we have been over the past couple days, he's a guy that I think everybody's looking forward to, or at least seeing the progression, right? And I think that's what we're starting to see is the progression towards the major leagues. I know it's going to be a couple of years, but you got to have a little bit of the sights in the future as well. And I think maybe that's part of the reason this restocking of the prospect system happened, was to give some of their guys that they're excited about some help, right? Maybe a couple of these guys hit together and they come up just like the Vlad, Bo, Cavan sort of era where they came up together. And maybe that's what they're trying to rebuild, right? Is find out a couple guys that they can bring up in 2027, 2028 that can do some damage going forward when Vlad's in his, around 30 years old, if he sticks around as a Toronto Blue Jay, that can be extra pieces and they can build it out through that way as well. Plus hopefully off-season moves. Yeah, we'll have to see. I'm excited about this kid. I don't know what. Again, I don't watch a ton of their games, but I do see highlights and clips and stuff like that, and he does. He looks like an absolute beast. So we'll have to wait and see, Carter. But I know you want to get into Ernie Clement as well, so I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, Ernie Clement. This guy is he's kind of a dog. Like, I'll say that. When he gets the opportunity to play, he's definitely making the most of it. So looking at Ernie Clement entering today, he was hitting 285, 303, and 427 slugging. So 303 is obviously on base with 26 extra base hits and a 2.8 WAR as a Blue Jay in 309 plate appearances. So that is also going back to 2023. And to just kind of break it down, maybe more simpler terms, maybe easier to understand. I was just going to go year by year with Ernie Clement. It's because when Bo Bichette's been out, when he's actually had a chance to be an everyday player, he has looked really good for the Toronto Blue Jays and made his mark be felt by this Toronto Blue Jays front office and just his teammates around him. So you're looking at 2023, he hit 380 with a 500 slugging percentage, 885 OPS, only in 30 games. Again, he was just dealing with, he was coming in for guys that were dealing with injuries, but looked really good. Had 1 home run, 10 RBIs. A guy that just doesn't strike out ever. So if you want contact, this guy gives you the ability to do hit and runs. It's going to provide you with above average defense as well. But going into this season, he is hitting 272 with a 708 OPS. Again, not great, but it's about league average for a guy that's giving you good defense. Not going to complain about that. And specifically over his last few games, over his last 15 games, this guy has a 304 average, 339 OPS, a 375 slugging, 9 RBIs. Again, he's not going to hit the home runs, but he's been getting hits. Had his first walk off, I believe, a week and a half ago. So another thing, he's having clutch hitting. Ernie Clement is one of those guys that you could definitely make the argument that should have a full role with the Toronto Blue Jays going into the next season. And now that you have IKF moved, you have Bo Bichette is kind of up in the air. But even if you do have Bo Bichette back, he plays your shortstop position. You got Spencer Horace playing two bag. Ernie Clement slots in pretty well at that third base position. And we're going to have to start getting to this narrative, or at least having the discussion. Is Ernie Clement ready to have a full role with the Toronto Blue Jays lineup in the big leagues? And for me, I love this guy. I do want to see a little bit more. I want to see if he can consistently do it for the rest of the season. But he's definitely playing himself into the discussion of having a major league role.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple guys like you mentioned on this team that you could argue, right, that could have potentially full-time playing spots on this team. It's what happens in the offseason, because like we've talked about, is that this team needs other superstars to surround Vlad with, or other big name players to surround Vlad with that can hit the home runs, that can, be that a little bit of the 1-2 punch, especially with the situation that Bo's in, which we've gone over. It's going to be interesting because I don't necessarily believe that I want to be banking on Ernie Clement to stay this way for the entirety of next season. I just don't know if it's realistic. I think he's playing great, and I love Ernie Clement. I really do. Just as much, I love Davis Schneider, but I don't also, those are two guys that I don't think, they're going to be up and down. They're going to be hot and cold. They're not your superstar players. They're great additional pieces, but they're not your superstar players. So we'll have to wait and see what moves get made in the offseason. But I absolutely love Ernie Clement, and I love watching him play. He's been super clutch, as you said, lately. He's been getting big hits, and when in a lineup that seems to not have a ton of those, Ernie Clement has been sort of a shining light here on this team lately. Carter, you know what? We have so much to talk about. I think the Ernie Clement conversation could be a whole piece in itself, and some of these guys, what happens moving forward. So I think we'll maybe save a bit of that for an upcoming episode. But just before we sort of hit this final break here, I did want to thank you guys for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. Make sure for your second listen, listen to Locked On MLB podcast. Host Paul Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. You got a series to preview. We'll do that coming right out of this break. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As you guys all know, FanDuel, one of my favorite apps on my phone. I have been winning money. I've been losing money, and it's mostly because of my own fault. I should have stayed with their same game parlays. I absolutely love them. I seem to just not lose. And then I always end up going back to I'm smarter than the people that make these bets. And I try to make my own and I lose. So I would say play their same game parlays. It is unbelievable. Usually they're pre-made and you can just click on them and ride it out. And Works for me. I don't know. I would say don't ride with me. I'm so up and down. I'm so hot and cold. But FanDuel, like I said, just an amazing site. That's the only place that I'll use my betting. And I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have wound down in the MLB, the NBA, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever, wherever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. So, Baltimore Orioles, Toronto Blue Jays. This series starts today as you guys are listening to this. Obviously, off day yesterday. And I mean, again, we preview these series. We're going to give you guys sort of who's pitching, what our thoughts are, but our thoughts are pretty much going to be the same, I think, for the upcoming rest of the year. It's just see what they can do, see what some of these young guys can do, and try to get a win here and there. That's about it. Just going over, so the starter for Tuesday will be Grayson Rodriguez versus Chris Bassett. Then I believe on the Wednesday, the Blue Jays don't have a starter set.
I have it. It's Bowden Francis. That's what it's rumored to be.
Okay, rumored Bowden Francis against Trevor Rogers, which will be fun to watch. I'm really excited about that game to see Trevor Rogers in a Orioles uniform, see how he does there against the Toronto Blue Jays. And then Thursday will be Kramer versus Gausman, and I don't care. I don't care about that game. Like, yeah, I want to see Gausman do well, but like, I'm not overly, you know what I mean? Like, there's some games that I'm like, oh, okay, I want to see this guy in particular. I want to see how Bowden Francis does in the starting role again. Oh, I want to see a Yariel Rodriguez pitch. But when it comes to Kevin Gausman, I know what he's going to give us. He's going to be his dog, and I just know that. It's just if the team will back him up, and it doesn't really matter at this point, Carter.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Mountcastle's probably going to launch the farthest home run of all time off Kevin Gausman. But hey, looking at the Toronto Blue Jays, we're only 15 and a half games back. You sweep the series, 12 and a half back. Maybe they're making a little bit of a playoff push here. The Baltimore Orioles just way better than Toronto Blue Jays. Simple as that. But you could trade guys like Connor Norby for Trevor Rogers. Again, Trevor Rogers is okay. He has control, which is nice. But Connor Norby, again, it's a prospect, so you don't know for sure. But just looking at the Baltimore Orioles prospects, Connor Norby, they traded Joey Ortiz away. He's having an effective role with the Brewers. Then you look at their actual team. They have Colton Cowser. They have Jordan Westberg, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson. That's where we wanted the Toronto Blue Jays to be from like 2020 to 2024 with all these highly touted prospects, where the expectation for the Toronto Blue Jays was just so high. And then you look at the Baltimore Orioles having this success. Now they're going to have success for probably the next like 10 seasons of baseball. Absolutely insane. But it definitely sucks to see a juggernaut like that in your own division. But yeah, overall, I mean, like as for the games, like if they win one game, I'm probably going to be happy. I think that's kind of where we're at here. The pitching matchups aren't the worst things I've ever seen. They kind of got to Grayson Rodriguez the last time they played him. Again, they played the Baltimore Orioles like a week ago. So that's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, overall, I mean, just looking at player performances, Addison Barger's been good recently. Hopefully they get him in there. Just going with their Buffalo guys. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I want to reach 30 home runs. So we'll definitely be on that home run watch at this point. But it would be nice to just see guys like, screw it, just bring up Charles McAdoo. He doesn't need to play any AA or AAA. Just throw him in there, see what he does. Could be the future of the Toronto Blue Jays. Definitely going to hope he is. But yeah, there's not too much expectation for me for the rest of the season. Hopefully Bowden could show you something. But other than that, we're taking it game by game. And with every game, we're getting closer and closer to the end of this hell that has been this 2024 Toronto Blue Jays season.
Yeah, I say this with a caveat. I say I'm ready for this season to be over, but then I know it's going to be December and I'm going to be hating my life not being able to watch baseball. So yeah, I'm just going to take the small wins. I know that's terrible to say, and we never wanted to do that, but it's where we're at now. It's taking the small wins. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Hopefully you guys enjoy all these episodes. I know it's been crazy lately with all the information that's come out, all the little things here and there that we've sort of thrown at you guys. We really appreciate all the subscribers, all the views, all the likes, all the comments. Make sure you guys comment. We love to see the comments, and we'll answer some of them on these episodes here going forward. If you guys got any questions for us, you can hit us up on Twitter, Braden Fibuasco, Carter First 2. If you want to send us like a question for a mailbag, if you have like a certain thing you want us to get into, if you guys got any ideas that you want us to do, you can let us know as well in the comments or on Twitter or wherever you can find us. And yeah, it should be a ton of fun. We're so thankful for you guys watching these videos, and we want to thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen today. So go check out Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And Sully is great, like we said. If you guys want to see the episode we did with him, it was just a whole John Schneider firing squad at that point. The three of us just going off about John Schneider, so it was pretty hilarious. If you want to see that, you can let us know. We'll maybe post that as a separate sort of episode as well. Carter, anything else before we get out of here? I know we got to go golf because we got to prepare for the upcoming tournament we got this weekend.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm definitely excited for. Regarding Sully, we got him on Friday. Got the Oakland Athletics, so that's going to be an interesting series. Maybe a series that Toronto Blue Jays, maybe they'll win. Who knows? The 2024 series win for the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, somehow we swept the Texas Rangers. But yeah, it's just I'm just going to go into the sport. That just lately it's been insane, obviously, with the trade deadline moves, where we're at with Toronto Blue Jays baseball. The fact that people are still involved and interested in what the Toronto Blue Jays are doing is definitely nice to see. Toronto Blue Jays fans are so loyal, one of the most loyal fan bases of all time. A little bit of quick, very quick reactions, whether players are playing good, playing bad, but they're so dialed in. Love to see it. Definitely love engaging in all the conversations that we do have. We have noticed that about 68% of you guys are not subscribed. So if you guys are tuning in, watching all of our podcasts, helps us out a ton and keeps our podcast at the top of your page. So it allows you to never miss one of our episodes, obviously posting every day, Monday through Friday. But overall, just continuing down the road, just closer and closer to the end of 2024. Like you said, right now we're like this, watching this team sucks, but then we're going to be a week without baseball. And we're like, damn, I wish we were watching that crappy Toronto Blue Jays team playing. I wish I was watching Vladimir Guerrero Jr. launch baseballs in the left center field. But overall, I mean, we're just going slow, taking it slow. Enjoy the time we have with the Toronto Blue Jays right now. We got, again, start of the season, we were saying don't really want these little wins, but that's all we got anymore. We're 10 games below 500. Got about 40 games left of the season. Hopefully, going to get some wins. But again, thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow.